If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. I'm an optimist, so I don't typically subscribe to this particular belief, but occasionally the pessimists are right. Years ago, I met a man named Danny on Plenty of Fish. Yes, I see the irony. He had piercing blue eyes, blonde hair, a strong jawline, nice muscles. He was so good looking, I was surprised that we'd matched. I know, should have been my first clue. Some of his photos looked like modeling shots, but he also had some I'm a real boy pictures that looked pretty legit. So I listened to my vagina and swiped right.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shanley, and this is For Love or Peanut Butter, a true life dating podcast in which a seemingly eligible yet perpetually single woman, that's me, finally delves into the why and the how she has remained single into her mid-30s. And she changes her life forever.
The catfish who lured me. Not exactly what I had in mind when they said there's plenty of fish in the sea. Danny messaged me right away. After some brief back and forth, he asked me to dinner. Nice. A dinner invite? That never happens. Usually it's just a general query into hanging out at some undetermined time in an undecided place in an alternate universe that doesn't actually exist.
Call me later, or I'll call you later, or...
On the day of our date, I was actually excited. Usually when I have a first date with a stranger from the internet, I debate whether or not to cancel all the way up to the moment I am on the bar stool next to him. But not this time. I texted Danny to let him know my ETA, and he said, "Great, I'm already here. I'll see you inside." We met at a little bar that's so small you can see the whole room right when you step inside. The bar was backlit with red lights. The walls were dark red. The leather booths were red. It was a cozy, intimate spot. Since Danny knew I'd be walking through the door at any moment, I assumed he would spot me first and greet me with a single red rose and a bottle of sparkling wine. You know, casual. But when I walked in, I mostly saw groups of people, and no one appeared to be expecting anyone. There was one guy sitting alone, but he had thinning hair and more of a DeVito vibe as far as Danny's go. So I kept searching. I grew increasingly uncomfortable, certain everyone in the room was watching me get stood up, even though no one was even looking at me, except for the Danny DeVito guy. He would look at me, look away, look at me again. Then finally, he cocked his head to the side like a puppy who was just told to sit for the first time and put on his best bewildered face. "Kelly?" He really leaned into the question intonation, like he couldn't believe that I was actually me. "Yeah?" I looked right at him. "It's me, Danny." Now, I can't be certain what my face looked like in that moment, but I suspect it was somewhere between racking my brain for the answer to a cryptic Jeopardy clue and smelling a fart. I was flummoxed. He looked nothing like the person in the photos. I looked exactly like mine. And he had the audacity to question whether or not I was me? Was this guy really trying to catfish me and gaslight me at the same time? Oh, hell no. I just stared at him, waiting for the "you've been punked" to drop and Ashton Kutcher to pop out from behind the bar, despite the fact that it definitely wasn't 2005 anymore. "It's me, Danny, from Plenty of Fish," he tried again. "I'm your date."
Oh, good.
I examined him thoroughly, like a seasoned carny trying to guess the weight of a husky, axe-wielding lumberjack. This guy looked at least 15 years older, 6 inches shorter, 40 pounds heavier, and a whole lot balder than the online version. I had been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, catfished. For those of you who have never been catfished, I will now try and describe what it feels like. Let's say you're driving home from dinner. Maybe you had a nice glass of wine with your meal and you're feeling satiated, relaxed, ready to go home and slip into your PJs. You've got a nice little evening ahead of you. Maybe you're jamming to the new Taylor Swift album, just vibing. But then you see a DUI checkpoint up ahead. You start to panic a little. It was only one glass, I'm fine. Oh, your palms are sweating. You want to turn around and go back the other way, but they've already seen you, so you can't very well just turn around and speed off. You freeze, panic a little more, question every decision that led you to this moment, and then concede. You pull into the checkpoint because you really don't see any other option and settle in for the consequences, except in this case, the DUI checkpoint is your date.
I don't want to do this!
So much for that nice little night you had planned. Now, back to the hoodwinking. You look pretty different from your pictures, I stated tentatively. Oh, really? He replied, acting surprised. Yeah, like really different. I raised my eyebrows the way parents do when they're trying to coax the truth out of their children. He gave me nothing. Apparently, he wanted me to spell it out. Like a completely different person. Is that really you in your pictures? I had never been this straightforward with someone right off the bat, and it terrified me, but also felt amazing. Like cliff diving when you nail the splashdown. But then he lied to my face, which felt more like a belly flop from 40 feet high.
It did not go well.
Yeah, that's me. You sure? I gave him one more chance to fess up. I asked if they were old photos, and he said, maybe a couple years, but nothing crazy. So that was that. He was sticking to his delusions, and I had officially been catfished. I didn't really know what to do after that. I assumed if I had the balls to ask him straight to his face if he was catfishing me, that he would just run away. But he didn't. Evidently, I was dealing with an experienced breed of catfish that didn't partake in embarrassment. The genus lies a lot and feels no shamus.
It's scientific.
So, what's my next move? Stand there and argue with him? Leave? Somehow, it still felt too mean to just leave. So, I stayed. He had, after all, promised me dinner. We approached the bar to order, and I noticed there were no menus or food anywhere. Then it became clear that this bar did not, in fact, serve food. So much for the dinner invite. Another lie. Cool.
Pretty cool.
He asked me what I wanted to drink, and I asked what he was having. Oh, just water. I have an early flight in the morning. To Dubai. Okay, well, I'm not going to drink alone, so I guess I'll have water too, I said. He turned to the bartender and ordered 2 waters on the rocks, with what I imagine he believed to be the swagger of James Bond ordering his martini shaken, not stirred. We drank our waters standing at the bar. Talk about a dream date. I was determined not to be judgmental and to give this guy a chance. Chalk it up to the incessant programming/shaming we receive as women to not be demanding superficial bitches who only date Adonises. I tried to forge some natural conversation, but all I learned about this guy was that he was rich. Apparently, his father had some big banking company in Switzerland and wanted Danny to take it over, but he was conflicted about moving to another country. It might have been interesting if he hadn't delivered it with the tone of a 4th grader bragging about his parents' new swimming pool. He told me how much money he spent on his last vacation, his collection of cars, his private plane, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Your dad's rich. Is there anything interesting about you? Do you perhaps play a random musical instrument like the tuba? Got any adorable pet pictures on your phone? Are you a get in the water kind of person or more of a terrestrial being? Do you have any hobbies at all? Or do you spend all of your time working at a job you hate and flying around on an empty private plane, having your robot sex slave Photoshop pictures of you into looking like Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise? Like seriously, my dad's company is worth millions, and he wants me to take over, which means I'd be worth millions. Right. I remember that from the last 3 times you mentioned it. The guy had nothing else to say. Nothing to contribute. Not a joke, not a story, not a question about me. I was bored and unimpressed. Kind of like how I feel whenever I watch Naomi Watts in anything.
We couldn't get anybody else? No.
I had immediately disliked this guy because he was a lying son of a catfish, but I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Big mistake. By the end of it, I didn't even believe he had any money. In my mind, he shared a tiny bedroom in a house in Sun Valley with 12 roommates and an indistinct, simultaneously nostalgic and nauseating smell. Like fresh beer and stale beer at the same time.
Strawberry Coors? It's something I invented.
I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself to the restroom and called my best friend, who didn't even answer. How dare she? I pouted for a moment as I sulk-scrolled Instagram and replayed every tragic rom-com scene featuring a bad first date sneak out the window fiasco I'd ever seen.
I'm stuck!
Yeah, the window was definitely too small. And then it hit me. I could just leave. I didn't owe this guy anything. He didn't fly me here on his jet. I wasn't tied to any train tracks. He hadn't even bought me a drink. Not that I would owe him anything if he had. All he did was bamboozle me with headshots of hot male models, and I still stayed to be polite? Ugh. I was a grown-ass woman who didn't need my best friend to call with a fake emergency to get me out of this. I didn't need to be rude or sneak out, but I could absolutely leave. I gave myself a power glance in the mirror, complete with a nod and a hair flip, and headed back out.
Slay, queen, slay.
I told Danny that it was nice to meet him, and I was going to take off. Then I braced for a rebuttal. He just said, okay, and told me to have a good night. It was a bit anticlimactic, really. I swallowed my wasted adrenaline and exhaled deeply as I left the bar, proud of how I'd handled the situation. I was so worried that Danny was going to be mad at me or guilt trip me or call me a bitch for leaving, but he didn't. He was probably surprised I lasted that long after calling him a fraud the second I met him. This might seem trivial to the men listening, but it's something that women think about a lot. When we reject a man, personally, professionally, all of the above, we play out every possible reaction in our heads before we decide how to act. Possibilities range from being dismissed and told we're missing out on the best dick of our lives to being chopped up into little pieces, shoved in a suitcase, and dropped into the Pacific Ocean.
Bon voyage.
Lucky for me, he was just a catfish, not a predator. Standard catch and release. So I stopped by Trader Joe's on my way home, all dressed up on a Friday night with nowhere to go. I bought myself some 2-buck chuck and peanut butter cups and headed home, just in time for that made-up emergency phone call from my best friend Sarah, who was feigning a deliciously Oscar-worthy meltdown to get me out of Dodge.
I'm Kelly Shanley, and this is For Love or Peanut Butter. For Love or Peanut Butter is created, written, and performed by me, Kelly Shanley. Produced and edited by Zeke Rodriguez-Thomas for Mindjam Media. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and leave us a glowing review. If you can't wait to hear the next one, check out the column of the same name on Medium. Link in show notes. And be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at Kelly A. Shanley. On YouTube, Facebook, and Medium, at Kelly Shanley. Thanks so much for listening, and stay crunchy out there. Or smooth.